Kansas City Chiefs versus the Baltimore Ravens. This is a game that's very exciting, but not exactly how we expected it to go off today on Locked On Chiefs and Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, Locked On Chiefs and Locked On Ravens fans. Thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. Today's Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So much to talk about. Kevin Ostreicher is with us from Locked On Ravens. We're going to be getting into this game a little bit later in the show. We're going to talk about the keys to win. We're going to talk about some matchups that are huge a little later as well. But we're going to start with injuries have really shaped these teams, Kevin. What can you tell me about the Ravens and how is that playing into what this game is going to look like?
Well, I hope that you two and everybody watching is ready to suit up for the Ravens D-line on Sunday, because that's about what's going to happen here. The entire Ravens starting defensive line was not at practice on Wednesday. Nnamdi Madubuike, Travis Jones, and Broderick Washington all did not practice. And John Harbaugh gave a pretty concerning update on Madubuike, where he's dealing with a neck injury, and you don't mess around with neck injuries. Those are very serious, just not even from football, but from a human level perspective here. And John Harbaugh said he didn't have the green light to comment on it. He actually already ruled Madubuike out for this game against the Chiefs.
Oh, wow.
So that's a pretty bleak update. We don't know if it's season ending, an IR stint, but right now the Ravens, for a team that already is not generating a lot of pressure on the interior, just pressure at all right now. They're 30th right now in pressure percentage. That's a big concern point. Other than the defensive line, though, you have Ronnie Stanley not practicing, Patrick Ricard, who has not played all season due to a calf injury. He was also not out there. And Kyle Van Noy, who's dealing with a hamstring injury, he was not out there. Isaiah Likely limited. Hopefully he'll be back for the Ravens this week. He didn't play last week against Detroit after having 3 limited sessions. So the ideal situations, he's back for this game. Obviously, we know what happened last year with Likely in the toe and how that game ended in Kansas City. But right now, the defensive line is the major concern point, because at this point, the Ravens, the only 2 healthy defensive linemen on their roster is John Jenkins, who is a veteran, and Aeneas Peebles, who is a rookie. They signed 2 guys to their practice squad yesterday on Wednesday, and Taven Bryan, a former first rounder, and Josh Tupou has been with them on and off the practice squad. So for a Chiefs team that I know is looking to get their run game going, Isaiah Pacheco, et cetera, that's going to be a big point. I'm sure we'll talk about it later in the show too.
Absolutely. It has to be a point. I'm personally pulling for Ricard because I'm here for all fullback action all the time. So I hope that he gets back there. On the flip side, the Chiefs have been through that as well, and they're starting to pull through it. Got Mike Dana and Christian Fulton back out to practice on Wednesday. Light, limited, but they were out there. It was a 10-10-10. So for the Chiefs, that's a paced practice. It is not contact. It is not heavy at all. So it doesn't mean that much yet. But the good thing was that Xavier Worthy also was back out on the field as a full participant this time. We know he's going to be limited in terms of his joint flexibility. That shoulder's going to have to be protected. They have a lot to do and a lot of concern there. But if they get these guys back, it's looking like the Chiefs could be in good shape to be at nearly full strength by the time they hit the field.
And that's really the crazy thing for me, is getting them to a point where they can actually have their wide receivers out there. Obviously, you're not going to have Rasheed Rice. You're still going to be missing that. But having Worthy back brings so much more of the offense into this game, in a game that Kansas City is kind of in a must-win position almost, and so are the Ravens. I mean, both teams are 1-2. There's no way that if you would have talked to us before the season started that both of these teams were going to be 1-2 in our eyes. I granted, Kansas City's schedule's been tough, the Ravens' schedule's been tough, but I wouldn't have said that they were going to be 1-2. So it's kind of crazy to me to see how this is turning out. But injuries really are the storyline for both teams, and Kansas City's been a little bit better in better shape than the Baltimore Ravens, but it doesn't sound like the Ravens are going to be having some very key players in this game.
Yeah, it's tough because, we don't know at this point. Obviously, Madubuike has already been ruled out, so that's one player that we do know is not going to be out there. But for a Ravens team that got pretty manhandled against the Lions in week 3 on Monday night, and the Lions run game started off a little slow. I think Jahmyr Gibbs had like 11 carries for 19 yards at halftime, but then we just saw the Lions impose their will physically. They were double teaming Travis Jones, who ended up, limping throughout I think he only played 2 fourth quarter snaps. So that's why he wasn't practicing on Wednesday. Roquan Smith was getting washed out of plays. Kyle Hamilton was getting washed out of plays. And it just felt like every play in that second half, it wasn't really this way, but it felt like it. The Lions were just getting chunk play after chunk play. And this Ravens defense, which was supposed to be, one of the best units in the league going into the season. And this is why you play the games and don't just, look at stuff on paper. You also can look at Zach Orr, the Ravens defensive coordinator, is having some interesting calls. They were having guys like Mike Green, the rookie outside linebacker, and David Ajabo dropping back into coverage on crucial third downs, which they just should not be doing in those moments and situations. And I know Andy Reid kind of hyped up Zach Orr and company on Wednesday during his availability and, said that he's been doing a nice job with that defense. Well, the tape says quite the opposite of that, but we know you're going to praise your opponent, right? Andy Reid might be playing a little chess there, but
what Reid always does.
And that's what you should do. That to me, with this defense, and look, I know that it hasn't been the start that the Chiefs have wanted offensively in multiple different aspects. But if you can't get pressure on Patrick Mahomes, if you can't stop the run game, like that's a huge problem considering we know the potential this Kansas City offense has. And if you just let Mahomes sit back in the pocket, not feel pressure, he's going to pick you apart. And if you blitz Mahomes and the pressure doesn't get there, which has been happening to the Ravens, well, Mahomes is going to get that ball out and you're going to pick up chunk yards that way. So the Ravens defense right now is in a bind in a lot of different areas. And, for them, it's not a great team to go up against, especially one that, despite the slow start for Kansas City, Baltimore has not really been able to beat Kansas City. It's that one game in 2021 with Owe and the forced fumble on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then other than that, Kansas City's had Baltimore's number for a while now.
Well, it's not one way either because this Chiefs offense is like creamy peanut butter. There are no chunks. They are looking for it. So maybe this defense against this offense is really what we're going to have to come down to. Whoever can get that done first might be in the advantage. For the Chiefs, they got to double down. I don't know that the Ravens need to be scared that Andy's going to run down their throats because, I don't know, we've been covering this team for, 7 decades, and we've never seen that. So we'll just keep crossing our fingers. But I think the matchup's intriguing, and both of them are hurting in a way that I think is complementary, which makes me just think that it's going to be a tighter game than we're used to, and they've been pretty tight over the years.
Yeah, and I do think that this is going to be a fun game, and we are going to get into Ravens defensive line a little bit more and the Chiefs versus the Chiefs offensive line when we get back right after.
The NFL season is on us, and FanDuel is making sure that you're getting ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it's all in one place, and the app is super simple to get after. Whether I want to do something ahead of time, put together a parlay, or whatever I'm looking for, jumping in live is even an option. It makes life one-stop shopping to get into the action. So if you're ready and you are ready to play, get in there, download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. And that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet to get that 300 bonus bets. Check it out at FanDuel.com.
When you think game day, you might not think Wayfair, but you should, because Wayfair is the best kept secret for incredible and affordable game day finds. Wayfair has everything you need to get your space ready for the season, whether you're tailgating outdoors or cheering from your living room. I picked a new grill, and it completely leveled up my game day experience. What I love most is the selection. Wayfair has unique finds and options for every budget, so I can show off my team spirit without overspending. Delivery was free, fast, and hassle-free, which is a lifesaver when you need something in time for kickoff. From outdoor essentials like folding chairs and patio heaters to indoor must-haves like TV stands and serveware, Wayfair has it all in one place. Wayfair is your trusted destination for all things game day. From coolers and grills to recliners and solo cookers, shop, save, and score today at Wayfair. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Kevin, this is going to be a game where you sit here and you look at it, and with all these injuries that you're dealing with right now, you just hope that they find a way to get it done. But you've already talked about the bleak look at that Ravens defensive line. I would think that attacking this Chiefs offensive line is something you'd want to do, but it doesn't look like you're going to have the players maybe that you want to be able to do that with.
Yeah, it's true. And, you can look at some of the stats behind the Ravens defensively right now, particularly when it comes to the pressure department. And the Ravens just have not been able to get anything in that regard. Over the course of the first 3 weeks of the season, the Ravens at this point in the year are 30th in pressure percentage at 14.4%. They're tied for 30th in sacks with just 3 of them. And they're also 30th in blitz percentage. So they're not really sending guys either, 12.1% there. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Ravens do try to get a little more aggressive against Patrick Mahomes. The problem is if that does not work and you do not get those quick wins, as we talked about in the first part of the show, Mahomes will pick you apart. It will be a guy that can settle into a soft spot. We've seen Zach Orr sometimes, play guys off more. And we saw against the Lions, there were multiple times where they would send, for example, Nate Wiggins on a corner blitz and Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. That pressure would not get there and they just settle in. And the Ravens aren't a defense. They do not like letting teams beat them deep. They will play a guy in single high and have him roam that area of the field. That's been rookie Malachi Starks for them for the most part. So you're not going to see a lot of 60-yard, 70-yard touchdowns down the field. They don't love giving those plays up, but on the contrary, what they do give up is their philosophy is essentially bend, don't break, where they'll let you take the short stuff. They'll let you march down the field a little bit. And then ideally for them, once you as an opponent get to the Ravens, 40-yard line, 30-yard line, they tighten up there and force you into a kick, whether it be a punt or a field goal. Now, that hasn't really helped the Ravens this year because they are second worst in the league at points given up at 96, I believe. So again, that hasn't been a great year in that regard. But, Mahomes is someone that is so hard to game plan for and so hard to beat. And even, since there's no Rasheed Rice in this game and we know Xavier Worthy's going to be working his way back and, Marquise Brown, obviously very familiar with him here in Baltimore. He's a guy that can make a play or two if you need him to. And you have other guys as well that are stepping up. Juju, I know, has played a role. And I'm a big Jalen Royals guy, although I'm not sure how much he's going to actually play in this game. All the guys getting healthy, I still think that with the Chiefs offense being the potentially higher powered unit that we know it can be, even though we haven't seen it, it all starts up front for me. And so for the Ravens generating pressure without a guy like Madubuike, even when Madubuike was in the first 2 weeks, they weren't really generating a ton of pressure. Yeah. Add that and the fact that you still might not have Van Noy. You might be without Travis Jones, who takes up a lot of double teams in this defense. The reason Madubuike is able to work so effectively and efficiently is because teams know how good Jones is, and they are double teaming him. And Madubuike is having those one-on-one opportunities. You don't have both of those guys. That's a big concern point.
You mentioned statistically who's playing well. Starks playing high. Statistically, didn't have the greatest week last week for Starks, for Humphrey, for Hamilton. Is it to the point now that for Orr, it's searching? We are always prepared because we have a rookie left tackle that's got to be the place that you try to push. But quite honestly, Josh Simmons has rose to the occasion and is not the weakest tackle on this starting five. So then does it become, okay, we're just going to take our stars and we're going to change it up? Are you going to send Wiggins? Are you going to send Hamilton? What does Orr need to do to help OA out, maybe to try to get some of that pressure, particularly from that one side of the field? Do you have a recipe for it? Because I want to know.
Yeah, it's just different looks in my opinion. I think honestly, you can't confuse Patrick Mahomes with sending guys to the line. Are they going to come? Or are they not going to? This is Patrick Mahomes we're talking about. But I still think that getting a little more aggressive is probably where the Ravens should try to go, because you are searching. You're trying to figure it out. Now, Mahomes, much like the top quarterbacks in the league, Lamar, Josh Allen, et cetera, they're not the status quo. They're better than the status quo. So you need to start to figure out how can you make these teams get a little bit antsy. With Mahomes, he's going to be cool, calm, and collected. Kelsey, he's going to be cool, calm. We know that these guys have been there and done that, especially against, again, a Ravens team that they have had success against over the course of their careers. But I would try to maybe send guys up the middle, potentially, try to get mismatches. And even you have guys like Marlon Humphrey not playing well. Roquan's been very up and down this season. And so for a guy like Owe, and you have a lot of guys who are motivated, a lot of contract year players, always been one of those guys. We saw Madubuike a couple years ago have a career high, got $100 million and, kind of off to the races there. But it also would help if Jair Alexander were to play in this game. He's been technically off the injury report these past couple of weeks, but not in football shape, and the Ravens have been holding him out. So it is possible that this is the week that he comes back, and maybe that opens up a couple more things to you. Maybe you can send Marlon Humphrey off the edge in some of those situations from the slot, and he can make a couple of plays. And even if it's just forcing Mahomes out of the pocket, making a more difficult throw than just standing in there and just delivering strike after strike. But at this point, it's just like, do you have the horses on the D line to do that? And if you are without your entire starting group, you're calling up guys off the practice squad, trying to put together this patchwork group of defensive linemen against the Chiefs offensive line. Then again, we know Jawan Taylor's a big story there for sure. And, can they attack Josh Simmons and make him have a struggle game? I don't know, but you're kind of running out of options because I always give it a month. I say, 4 weeks, that becomes a trend, right? First couple weeks, you can overreact to a lot of different things. But in my opinion, at this point, if it doesn't work against Kansas City and it hasn't worked against some of these top, because Kansas City and Buffalo and Detroit, those are the teams you're going to be playing in the playoffs, right? Cleveland, great win. Browns defense is great. You're not going to see that team in the playoffs. These are the tests for both the Ravens and the Chiefs of hey, where are you in terms of measuring up to those top teams in the league? This is a huge game in that regard too.
Well, and I think that the big thing when you start looking at the Ravens defensive line is it goes past just the defensive line, because you have those defensive linemen keeping your linebackers clean, getting them the ability to make plays for your defense. And if you have a completely new defensive line, that's going to affect your second level as well. So I think that's going to be a big key in this game. But when I look at this and I start looking at the Chiefs and how they're going to be attacking the Ravens, it all comes down to Lamar Jackson. Don't get me wrong, Derrick Henry's a fantastic running back. I think he is one of the best that's ever played. But it's a question of, can you keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket and force him to try to beat you with his arm? And it's not that he can't, because he can make throws, and I understand that. But it's when he becomes a dual threat quarterback, it becomes an even bigger issue for a defense, and it becomes so much harder to defend. That to me is going to be a huge key in this game. Is Spags able to keep him in the pocket and make him try to force throws when he doesn't want to?
The big thing with Lamar is he's so hard to defend against. And so he's shown that over the course, and especially as he's grown as a quarterback, that him standing in that pocket and he just can deliver strike after strike. Lamar loves to do that. And he's even openly admitted that, hey, I would much rather throw the football than run it. Like he enjoys that aspect of it. I know that when he gets out of the pocket and he's running around and he can make stuff happen with his arm and with his legs in those situations, it becomes like as a defender, you're on your toes. Man, do I try to cover? Do I try to come up and stop Lamar? And I thought Detroit did a really good job in week 3, and credit to him in that defense. Kelvin Shepard, he was essentially at the end of the game just rushing 3 guys and using a spy on Lamar Jackson. And that spy, whether it was Derek Barnes, I think Jack Campbell was that spy a lot of the time, Lamar would have nowhere to go, and that spy would be right there waiting for him. And they made one-on-one tackles in the open field, and that seemed to have a pretty big impact on the game. The Ravens, that offensive line also is not looking great. I know there was a lot of Chiefs, 49ers, Ravens controversy in terms of how those tackles went at the end of the second round in the draft last year, where obviously the Ravens got Roger Rosengard, and there were rumors that maybe the Chiefs wanted him. Obviously, Kingsley is now in Kansas City because of that, and Rosengarten's been really bad, quite frankly, to start the year for the Ravens. He gave up 6 pressures in that Detroit game, and you have guys like Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees who are still very inexperienced. They're having up and down moments. Ronnie Stanley has struggled at points this season as well. Lamar feels like he has happy feet in the pocket. It feels like he doesn't trust the Ravens offensive line fully for the first time in honestly a little bit. So if those Chiefs guys can get home and win quickly and get to Lamar, feels like he's holding the ball for a little too long on some of these plays and, trying to maybe bail out a little bit early. That's not when Lamar's at his best. Lamar's at his best when he can sit back there, survey, go through his reads. And I think the next step, obviously, is just the Ravens have to scheme open guys where if he's getting pressure quickly, just check the ball down, or throw the ball away, right? Live to see another down. It's not all Lamar's fault. 7 sacks, 30 pressures is what PFF charted the Lions having, 30-3-0, which is ridiculous. You see a number like that and you're like, man, what's going on? Hard on the offensive line. Lamar could have thrown the ball away a little bit too, but that's a huge point in the game too, because Lamar right now just feels like he doesn't trust the group in front of him.
There are a lot of keys to getting this win. That's one of them. Stopping Derrick Henry is another one to get them all right after this on the Locked On Podcast Network. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering for your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets is a hassle. Between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout. It's really frustrating, and that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage. Back to fans, Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered every time at the best price, plus all the fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pull up Game Time anytime to get a couple of taps. I get amazing deals. I get to see where my seat is. I get to see my favorite NFL games for as low as $100. You can too. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, that's promo code LOCKEDONFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
Cannot wait. Chiefs Ravens is always a good game, and this is going to be no different. Keys to victory. Ryan, I'm going to start with you. Where are you seeing this going as it is right now?
With all these things that we've been talking about, I think in the end, as teams try to simplify for both their sakes, I do think it comes down to foundational football. And for me, that means something that the Chiefs have been fairly successful at, but not always as consistently as you like. You got to stop Derrick Henry. Because this team, the Chiefs defense, is generally okay letting you run. You let Derrick do that, it's going to hurt. It's as good as a deep ball. So they got to shift their mentality. They have been successful, especially going back to even Frank Clark, where they've been able to shift that mentality to really try to attack him in particular, to try to slow down what I think is the catalyst of the offense. That's not the only thing. Obviously, we just talked about Lamar. They are kind of a two-headed monster, but I do think in this particular case, I got to put that emphasis on, especially early downs. First couple of 15 is go stop Derrick.
It's a good one. And Derrick is coming into this game extremely mad and extremely ready to prove someone wrong here, because he has 3 fumbles over the course of the first 3 games for the Ravens, 2 in very high leverage situations that ultimately were a key part in costing the Ravens those matchups. I saw someone on social media say the first Chiefs defender that comes in contact with Derrick Henry is going to be like vaporized into atoms, because he's going to get hit so hard, because Derrick's looking for that guy. And he's still mad about it. Even on Wednesday, he talked about it. So, and I always say this, like, especially with this Ravens offense, like it's 100% correct. Like Derrick Henry, if you get him going, and he's a guy that, like, as he picks up speed down the field, he is harder. It's like a bowling ball. It's harder and harder to stop him. But if you let that Ravens ground game go wild, the Ravens can work play action off of that so effectively, because as a result, you have to either send in heavier personnel, or those linebackers start to creep up more towards the line of scrimmage, and you see that fake, you take a step, and then you have maybe a Mark Andrews running behind you for a big play. So it's a huge key for the Chiefs for sure. I think for the Ravens, conversions are going to be really big in this game, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, where the Ravens haven't been great at stopping third down this season. They're 24th in the league, haven't been great in the red zone so far either. They're giving up 50% of their fourth down conversions, plus 54.5% of their red zone conversions, which their red zone conversion rate is 28th in the league right now. And you look at the opposite for Kansas City here, third down defense for Kansas City is great. They're 9th in the league on third down. On fourth down, they're 6th. Then red zone, they're 15th. So I think, to me, for the Ravens, stopping the Chiefs on third down, because again, for a great offense, or an offense that has a lot of potential, I say this for a lot of these great teams, how do you stop that offense? Is you don't let them get the ball in their hands. You keep them on the sideline. So you don't give Mahomes the ball, and Mahomes can't do anything without the ball. So I think that's going to be big, of stopping the Chiefs on those big third down conversions, turning the ball back over to the Ravens. That's going to be a big way I think Baltimore can win this game.
You know, when I look at this game, it comes down to, can Kansas City continue to do what they have started to do this season, and that's throw the ball down the field. I'm not saying they have to chuck it down the field 8 or 9 times in a game, but they need to continue to push the ball down the field, because it changes their offense and it gives them the ability to threaten the defense and make the defense back up, which I think is going to be very important, because the Chiefs need to be able to run the ball as well. So to me, it's a multiple thing. Like, if you are able to throw the ball and you're able to threaten, and you take a shot to Tyquan Thornton, even if you don't connect, it makes the Ravens think about it. And if that pulls the safeties back even just a little, or the linebackers are hesitating because of the deep pass with Thornton and Brown and Worthy in the game, that is going to help the running game. And Kansas City needs to be able to keep Lamar Jackson off the field and really keep their defense off the field as well. Because the thing that always worries me about a guy like Derrick Henry is you may stop him early in the game, but if he gets the ball 25 times, you're not going to be wanting to stop him in the fourth quarter. I'm thankful that this is a September game and not a cold winter game, because it'd be even worse in November, December. But that's the big thing for me, is looking at this game. Can you continue to push the ball down the field so you can maybe run the ball a little bit better and keep the ball away from the Ravens offense? I'm really looking forward to this game. Anything else you want to throw out there, Kevin?
No, I mean, I just think that for both these teams, honestly, it could come down to the turnover department as well. Like, I think that the turnovers, the Ravens haven't been able to really force a lot of those in big spots this year. I mean, the last turnover the Ravens forced that was not against the Cleveland Browns, and they played the Browns twice, was Christmas Day against Houston. So it's coming up on 9 months since that has happened, right around. You got to be able to force turnovers. Those are the ultimate shifts in games, those big momentum plays. So in my opinion, if the Ravens can force a couple of those, I expect it to be a close game. Those could be the difference in the game, as well as the special teams as well. The Ravens working with Tyler Loop at kicker now. There is no more Justin Tucker. Loop's been great as a field goal kicker, but the new kickoff rules, he's been kicking the ball out of bounds a lot. He's been putting the ball in the right before the zone you're supposed to kick it in. So that has given the opponents the ball at the 40-yard line. You can't give your opponent short field here. That's another big one I'm looking at too.
That is going to be it for us today. Do not miss our previews for Friday's show on both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Kevin, it's been fun. Always enjoy these. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you